G'day, you all nice people on the internet. Today is the 8th of June 2026. My name is George, and my job today is to present to you a message of hope. Now, today's going to be a little bit different. I hope it's not going to be annoying to you because I borrowed one of those fancy gimbal. I've never used them before, so this is the first video I've ever tried. Let's see how we go, hey? Alright, on with the message. 22 cents. Yes, and that is what Amanda had in her bank account. 22 cents, Australian cents. And she was about to buy a $60,000 BMW sedan, convertible too, on credit. And I came across a 60-minute story recently titled, Young People Living a Lavish Lifestyle on Credit Card Debt. And I have to tell you, I couldn't look away. Amanda is part of what the researchers call Generation Y. I didn't even know such thing exists. She earns $35,000 a year. And get this, she was spending $1,500 a week on her credit card. Yep, you heard what I said. You do not need a calculator to see the problem here, do you? Her annual wage wasn't covering 3 months of her spending even. When asked what she would do if the bills became unmanageable, she said she would declare bankruptcy. Just brushing it off, so casually. And then she said something that I had to rewind to make sure I heard her right. It's true. She said she was the victim of all this. Really? Victim of all this? Now, there was another lady in the video. Her name was Zoe. Also a young girl, 21 years old. However, she's got $70,000 in debt. Her wages was $35,000 a year working at a supermarket. What did she put on the credit card in other credits? She bought a car, PlayStation, a high-end laptop, 2 big televisions, and heaps of stuff. So in the video, she sat in front of the camera and asked herself out really loud, why wasn't I just happy with what I had? I think you could see the weight of it on her face when she broke down. And there's Emma. She is a full-time business student who said plainly that debt is a way of life. So, in her case, she borrowed $12,500 for a car and an overseas trip to Europe. It's estimated at her current rate, by the time she turns 40, she'll have paid $77,000 in interest alone. To me, that's astronomical. Now, no cover story would be complete without interviewing an expert, right? So, they went to a professor, and the professor went on to say he didn't blame the young people at all. He blamed the lenders. So I'll just pause for a moment. Put in a comment, do you think he was right in the assessment? It's always the lender's fault. Okay. Well, here's my honest position on that. I think he's partly right. The lending system has some real questions to answer. It's been like that for so long, but only partly, because I think the harder question, really, the one the professor didn't quite get to, maybe he's been edited out, I don't know. The question is, what nobody taught these free before the credit card arrives, right? That's my question. Who taught them anything? Now, this is where I want to bring in something that I think it gets missed in these conversations. Let's listen to Luke chapter 15, verse 14. I imagine a lot of you out there will be very familiar with this verse. This is from the parable of the prodigal son, yeah? A story Jesus told primarily about repentance and the Father's mercy. But I think inside that story, there is a stewardship lesson that I keep returning to. So here it is. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. You can read the rest of that story later on. Now, when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose. Yes, a famine didn't cause the crisis, I don't think. It actually revealed it instead. The son was already in trouble the moment he stopped thinking about what came next. The famine just made visible what had been quietly building in the background. Yeah. And that is the drift. Not necessary disaster. That was tongue twister there. But simply a drift. Yeah. It's a slow, unnoticed movement away from wisdom while life feels really fine. I'm sure he had a pretty good time early on, the prodigal son. So going back to Amanda. Amanda wasn't in a crisis the day the bills arrived, right? I think she was in crisis long before that. She didn't recognize. The day she decided that happiness lived on the other side of a credit card swipe and never asked what came afterwards. Because all these new shiny objects are very attractive. Yeah, it can be a trap if you're not careful with these. And I want to tell you about someone I know. Now, years ago, I estimated he may be about 5 or 6 years away from clearing his home loan. To me, that's a little bit of a manageable amount, I think. Some reasonable timeline if he was fit and healthy. And at that time, I believe he was doing fine. I caught up with him recently, a phone call. We usually have it every now and then. You know, the phone call the way you do when life gets busy and months just slip past, doesn't it? He told me the needle on that home loan hasn't moved much. So that's nearly 8 years on, I estimate. He spent money on other things, on other people. There might be some regret in what he did. And then he said something that shocked me. Then he had to go without some essentials to keep going. Now, I have helped him in the past. Finance. Yeah, a little small amount, so it's not like I wasn't helping him at all. He didn't say it to me it was a complaint. He just said it quietly. So quiet, the way that people do when they absorb the reality they didn't plan for, really, have they? And that is what drift cost, the drifting I said about. So it may not be a catastrophe at the start. I'm not doing well today. It might not even be a sudden collapse. But quite often it's just a slow compound interest of the decisions that felt reasonable in the moment. That's adding up to a life that has less breathing room than it should. So you've got to be very careful. Now, before you point at Amanda's bank, and before you point at Zoe's lenders, before you even agree with the professor, yes, there is something to agree with. I want to ask you one question here. So what decision are you making right now that future you will have to clean up? Have a pause and think about it. Yeah? We're talking about not Amanda's or Zoe's, but your decisions. What could it be? Because the famine always comes, doesn't it? And it doesn't send a letter first. It just doesn't. It doesn't even wait for a convenient time because it just arrives. And on a day when that matters, it's not what you earn. It's what you kept and what you built. Okay? And whether anyone taught you that the good years are for preparing and not just consuming. I hope there are people out there who teach you and you'll be able to help others. Okay, so I want to put something to you before we close, and I generally want your thoughts in the comments. So do me a favor, all right? All right. Now, last week at my Bible study, someone mentioned they accidentally put petrol in a diesel van. I guess it happens. I've never been guilty of it, but, you know, I can't be cocky about it. They call a specialist to pump it out. And the specialist quoted $475 initially. Well, they haggled a little bit and it got down to $425. Okay, not a bad result still, right? The room was mostly on the side that the specialist was an opportunist. Yeah, opportunist because he was charging an extortion rate for someone in a bind. Okay, it's questionable what you mean by extortion. Now, from memory, I was the only one who said the opposite. That the $425 was a fair price for specialists showing up with the right equipment at short notice. That's my opinion, right? I kept it to myself. It's like the dentist who charges emergency rates after hours. Or the people who make good money when gold and silver surged earlier this year. And I know There are some people who's done that. That's not exploitation, is it? That's just the market doing what it's supposed to do. And I also say that is a $425 lesson that will not be repeated in a hurry. Expensive lesson, of course. But I want to hear from you. Was the specialist an opportunist, or was it a fair price? So do me a favor, drop in the comments now, because I do read every one of them. And thank you so much for those who've been able to send me their comments. You've been great. Back to what I was saying, Zoe asked it herself on camera through the tears. Why wasn't I just happy with what I had? Because she already knew the answer. My guess, she knew it the moment she asked it. When he had spent everything, a severe famine arose. That's the prodigal son. My friends, before the famine arrives, what are you spending on these days? And that is the message of hope. Thanks for being me. It's such a great, wonderful day today. Nice and sunny on this public holiday here in Australia. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. I promise there'll be another new one tomorrow. Until then, you take care. Bye-bye.